if Gary speaks to it, I might just about close it out really quick.
This is pretty straightforward. It's the same process that we were using, that we talked about for Waihi Beach Surf Life Saving. Proposal to lease, we then just go through advertising and get feedback. Small area supported by the Keri Rugby Sports Club, and they work with netball. So we're just recommending that proceeds to the next stage.
Yep, perfect time for questions, and then I'll get a move on.
24 square metres, that's not enough for a netball court. So why is the netball?
No, it's a shared story.
I know, but what the netball, there's no netball facilities there. So is this the first like toe in the water? Is it?
I know there's a proposal at Keri about netball courts. We posed a question about where it might go on that park, which is potentially by the skate park.
I'm not sure if it is on skids, is it? But anyway.
No, it's not on the schedule, but it's people are proposing it.
Okay.
No, it's not on skids, no.
No. Okay, could I have a mover and a second for that? Councillor Joyce, Councillor Sol. Thank you. Any further discussion? Appears not. I'll put that. All in favour? Those against, that declare it carried. Thank you. Thank you, team. Right, now we jump right forward to Te Puna Station Road proposal, Councillor Coxhead. Welcome, Callum. In other words, this is free, Councillor Coxhead, from congestion. This is page 69. Yeah, save me. Oh, I might have a crack at Shelley. Oh, close. He put the handcuffs away.
Yeah, go straight.
Do you want me to put it?
Yeah.
I can tell you the rat runners will come back that quick, Rodney. It's just irrelevant. At least they can see the roads getting built on the other side, so we'll tolerate rat runners for 3 or 4 more years. Huge jumpers, that's right.
Can you just know that we're cancelling this strategy possibly?
Yeah, we thought so. We just about cancelled it. I told James to got an appointment down here. Just put you out of your, give you some certainty, councillors. James's strategy and policy, case by case, evaluation will be rescheduled next week.
Yeah. Strategy and policy workshop is postponed.
Yeah, that's another way of putting it. Well done.
Okay, good afternoon. As you're aware, there's a section of Te Puna Station Road has been closed since January 2023 in response to a number of overslips and underslips. The effect of that closure has been to increase the traffic on Clark Road by 300% overall and increase the number of heavy vehicles on Clark Road by 1700%. So big jump in the heavy vehicles. 80% of that traffic is heading towards State Highway 2. So there's traffic trying to avoid Te Puna Road and the State Highway intersection at Te Puna Road. Clark Road is typically 4.9 metres wide, which is inadequate for the size of the vehicles, the heavy vehicles that are now using it. And so we've got a couple of photographs here that we received from residents, which basically show what the issue is. So you've got a heavy truck there, which is basically driving down the centre line of the road, and there's very little room for opposing vehicles to pass. In the second picture, you can see that a light vehicle has had to drive onto the edge of the road to get past the bus. So, so the proposal is to temporarily reopen Te Puna Station Road to traffic. So this picture shows the state of Te Puna Station Road at the moment. So it's been made safe for pedestrians and cyclists. The slip material has been removed from the carriageway and basically stacked at the side of the road. A fence has been erected around the underslips to prevent pedestrians and cyclists from, falling into them. And concrete blocks have been placed on either side of the closed section to prevent vehicles from driving through. The concrete blocks were necessary because we did hear reports of people trying to drive through, so that's an added feature. So this is the first part of the layout, and then the second part is on the next slide. But basically, the proposal is to open one lane of the road to one-way traffic, which would be eastbound towards State Highway 2. The reason for that is to basically take those vehicles, heavy vehicles, which are currently using Clark Road. The reason they're using Clark Road, some of the local traffic from Te Puna Business Park, the reason it's using Clark Road is because they're prohibited by existing consent conditions from using the Te Puna Station Road, Te Puna Road intersection. So they're forced to use Clark Road in order to comply with their consent.
Yep.
Colin, they're not allowed to use Te Puna Road, but we invested, or Mr. Daniels did, in Clark Road to slow the treatment down, slow treatment, so that trucks couldn't go down there. And I'd like to know what would be the cost of actually doing the two ways for Te Puna Station Road, where we want to do one way. That in the long term, it's going to be real messy and more pressure is going to go on Clark Road, which shouldn't be. And I think that in the long term, until we get the expressway through, this is going to be really serious for everybody.
Yeah, so
Why can't we do it two-way?
So the report at the moment is to temporarily open it to one-way traffic, and the reason we want to temporarily open it to traffic is to give us time to come up with options for the long-term future of Te Puna Station Road, which would include, as an option, reinstating it to two-way traffic. So we're not quite at the stage where we can report back on that at the moment, but that's certainly in the pipeline.
So the timeline for that?
6 to 12 months.
Coxie.
So, Callum, is there any way that heavy traffic can be banned from Clark Road in whatever form?
Yeah. There's two ways. Short-term way would be under the Local Government Act, which I think would be Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act. That would allow us to close it to heavy vehicles for a period of 6 months. The second way would be to amend council's traffic and parking enforcement bylaw, and basically that would create a similar scenario to what exists on Wilson Road South at Pangaroa.
So people would just ignore it, is that what you're saying? Isn't that what happens in Wilson Road?
I would say we would need to encourage the police to enforce it, is what I would answer.
Rodney.
Tracy, you asked the question I want to ask, so thank you for that. So if we did ban heavy vehicles from Clark Road, and there's an issue with them going on Te Puna Road, where would they go?
Well, the only place they can go until that consenting issue is addressed, the only place they can go is Te Puna Station Road.
No, they can go on Te Puna Road.
No. So GMC has a premises on Te Puna Station Road. Under the terms of the consent that they have for that premises, they're not prohibited to put over-dimensioned vehicles on Te Puna Road.
When you say over dimension, is that basically heavy traffic?
So it's basically the type of low loader transporting heavy construction machinery that you see quite a bit of on Te Puna Station Road.
James.
There's quite a lot going on here, isn't there?
There is a lot.
And I hadn't appreciated that consent issue. And that seems to me to be a big problem. And I wonder, maybe Rachel can assist on this one, can that consent, or Alison, sorry, can that consent be changed? Because, you know, if for whatever reason, the alternatives are not possible, you know, surely we're not saying, well, the consent says you never get out of your property. That would be weird. The other thing is, I wondered, and I'm sure Clark Road residents have their own views on this, but we could even make Clark Road a cul-de-sac, close at one end or another, have no through traffic at all, and that might change the dynamics there. But look, I'm concerned on this whole issue though, because one, it's another adverse effect from the industrial site. So it's not just rat running as it had initially appeared. It's the industrial side, but also when the Te Puna Station Road was closed, I said publicly we'll go and consult residents on reopening it. So I feel uncomfortable doing that, even as a potentially temporary measure. But it seems a bit Weasley to now say that we'll open it on a temporary basis and then consult on a permanent basis. That doesn't sit well with me. It may be that our options are limited, but this situation does seem quite a mess to me.
Before we move on, Gary, do you want to talk to that dilemma for the mayor?
Sure. So I quite agree with the mayor in terms of we said we would consult, and I said that. I probably wasn't thinking about a temporary opening, and probably we had less of an understanding of the impact that was causing on Clark Road. There's still the ability to do a consultation now through for the Survey Monkey or something back from the Te Puna, particularly the Te Puna residents, but it's not just the Te Puna residents get affected by the reopening. You could argue that the traffic on the highway also is impacted by it. So you then go, how broad do you want to consult? We said at the time that because there was alternative access, reopening this permanently in the two-lane option was going to take some time, and as Callum said, there's another 6 to 12 months because it's not a priority in terms of the engineering resources we have available to do this compared to some of the other sites that we need to repair. But the reopening on a temporary basis is probably easier, single lane. You could not reopen it 2 lanes. So that's really part of the reason this has come here in terms of going, what do you want to do as the council? Because a normal road would have gone, it's been blocked, we'll reopen it. It's simple as that, because this has got those alternatives and because of, I guess, to reopen it permanently 2 lanes, the significant cost that goes with it. So if you're not comfortable with doing this, you could go, actually, we're comfortable in principle, but we want to hear back from people, and we can work with Luke's team and put out a survey or an online sort of survey and see what we get back over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then bring it back and go, this is the feedback we've got.
I think that would be better. Perhaps I just come back to the earlier question I had, perhaps for Alison, can those consents be changed, or is that just a difficult or impossible process?
So probably the biggest issue we've got at the moment is JMC. So they've got a consent to, which essentially prohibits them using Clark Road for transporter. So transporter movements, which is essentially the vehicle transports, not all transport movements. And we've approached them directly about getting a variation for their resource consent. At this point in time, they are reluctant to go down the track of applying for a variation for their consent until they get a clear position around what's happening with the roads. So we're kind of in a chicken and egg scenario, because if there is a roading solution going forward, then they don't need to have a variation for their consent. So they can get one, but obviously it's a consenting process we need to go through.
So we can't change it from the outside. We need to ask them to make an application for a variation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there is an opportunity through most resource consents to go for a review of conditions, and we have approached them directly about getting a review of their council initiating a review of their conditions. But again, that's on that basis that we've got a very clear reasoning for why they need to be varied. And it's not a short-term thing. It's obviously, as soon as we vary the consent, it's set in place for the remainder of that consent being applied for.
Yeah.
So, in perpetuity, essentially.
Thank you.
Murray,
So if I understand correctly, we've heard from Callum that the JMC can't use Te Puna Road, and we've heard from Allison they can't use Clark Road.
Yeah, it is both.
So
Oh, the conditions that apply to Puna Road were put in place before the state highway upgrade. So their consent is a number of years old. So that was only based on the fact that there was no easy access to state highway from that way.
lots of speakers queuing up, but from a sheer practical point of view, to get a big transporter trailer around an acute bend, if you're coming from Te Puna Road, that's the key issue into their driveway. I've seen those trucks numerous times. They come out and they head towards the river. They virtually have to turn inside out with a massive long trailer, but it's the acute problem. If they're going to break one law, they might as well go with what's practical rather than what's not. Right, I'll better follow my assistant's list here, and then I'm not showing any favouritism. I've got Margaret, Murray, Bench, Tracy, and then Scrim.
The people of Te Puna Road are sick of the heavy traffic they've got on there now, and the noise and the heavy traffic. And so it's not acceptable to see more trucks go down there. My question is to Mr. Ellis. If we go for the two laning on Te Puna Station Road, where we've got the damage done, can that still be funded from the overall rescue funds that were provided, which we can do for the one laning? Can we do it for the two as well?
I just go, it's possible. So with all the storm damage, Waka Tahi is looking at what they're funding and what they're not. And whether alternatives, they might go, now you can use the alternative route and we won't reinstate a current route. So it's not guaranteed that if we came up with a reopening with two lanes, that it would meet the requirements for reinstatement under the emergency works. If it doesn't meet those requirements and there's not a business case for it, then you would have to do it at 100% council funded. The indicative numbers to start with, I don't know if they've changed, Callum, but they were in the $2 to $4 million range. So if the emergency works applies for that, then the subsidy would probably be at 71%. But if it doesn't apply, then the subsidy is zero and it's all council funding. Reopening this one lane is probably more probable because it also serves a purpose as the current state highway detour component, and would also assist when you hear things about they need to do works on Highway 2. You can certainly use that Snodgrass Road, etc., as a detour to the highway when they're doing works on the highway. So there's advantages from a network perspective rather than just individual road. So I'd go no guarantee, and that's why we need, as Callum said, he needs to go through the options assessments, and part of those options assessments include those discussions with Waka Tahi.
Right, Tracy.
Just about in danger of forgetting what I was going to ask. So going back to JMC, so they're not allowed on Te Puna Road, but they can come, so they can't go onto it, but they can come down from heading from the roundabout towards Te Puna Station Road, is that right? They can go that way? I just want to clarify a couple of things. Because they do.
Yeah, my understanding is that they can't do that either. The consent requires that the intersection be upgraded, and it's not yet been upgraded to our satisfaction because it hasn't got a right turn way from Te Puna Road into Te Puna Station Road. That's my understanding. Alison, are you?
Rachel, you might as well clear this up. Your past experience. No, we're not. We're in open. Oh, so you don't want to clear it up.
second, so
Who's
just
on my list?
second part of my question. So this restriction only applies to JMC, not all the other people in the business park?
And no, it's just JMC because their consent predates the structure plan for the Tapuna Business Park. So it's a wee bit different to the other properties that make up the Tapuna Business Park.
Yeah, they're not actually part of the business park.
No, they're not.
They're
They're
rural,
not-
aren't they?
They operate out in the rural zone. under
Rural zone, yeah.
resource consume. Right, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, well, I guess when I first read this paper, I was concerned about encouraging the queue jumpers if we went ahead with this, but as proposed. But having listened to the discussions, and I fully appreciate, or I think I fully appreciate the mayor's concerns about consultation, but I think we could, and should proceed with the 6 months temporary opening of one lane. And it could be explained on the basis of the perhaps somewhat unexpected traffic changes as a result of the closure and the other works going on in the area. And I think there really probably is an opportunity to do this and assess what the outcomes are from that. So that's me.
I was just consulting with the chief. Are you no longer the Deputy Chief Executive? I better give you a new title. You're just barely number 3 here beside me. I will, he tells me it's probably 6 to 10 weeks away from physically being able to reopen it. So to accommodate the mayor under the recommendations, number 3, if we insert something along the lines of we consult, that was talked about through Luke's communication term.
I have some wording, Mr. Chairman, if that helps.
Oh, great. You've been thinking.
So
ahead of me.
I would say instead of 3, we'd say that the Performance and Monitoring Committee consult with the Tapuna community on the proposal to reopen Tapuna Station Road one way to eastbound traffic.
But it's not just the Tapuna community, like you start people right turning again.
I'm drawing a line somewhere, you know, I don't think we start consulting at Cuddy and so on, but I'm drawing a line at some point, but I mean, if you want to draw it wider, that's fine. I mean, in the end, anyone can probably engage with our with our consultation process anyway, right?
Did you intend to leave out to the temporary?
So you managed to get that, Caroline?
No, can you please repeat?
Okay. And Murray's just reminded me I should include the word temporary, so that the Performance and Monitoring Committee or staff, should we say, that the staff consult with the Tapuna community and wider district on the proposal to reopen Tapuna Station Road on a temporary basis, one way east to eastbound traffic.
Yep. Your reaction to
I was
that?
just going to add that on page 2, we have identified a number of parties that we're proposing to engage with
Yeah.
before opening. So that would be primarily Clark Road, Tapuna Station Road, Tehana Road, because Tehana Road is going to be affected as well. Tangata Whenua and Wakakotai and NZ Police.
So it's basically what James has put forward anyway, but open it up a little bit to all Uncle Tom.
I was meaning Tapuna community in a broad sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point taken. Okay. I'm happy to second that if you're moving it. Recommendation 1, 2 and 3.
Can I just confirm that our new number 3 would be what James has proposed?
Yeah. So to replace what's there. Councillor, do you want to speak to it?
No, I'm quite comfortable with seeking input on the temporary solution, hopefully being able to instigate that. That's it. I'm quite happy to do that, and I'm glad that we're looking at some sort of solution here.
Rodney.
I mean, this is going to move the problem. I mean, it's a genuine problem, and I realise it's very real for Clark Road residents, and the pictures show just how bad it is. It's going to move the problem, and that's not a great solution, but I realise we have very few options. So one thing I would suggest is that actually we do ban heavy traffic from Clark Road as part of this, to make it very clear where we want them to go. I'd also suggest that Te Puna Station Road, the give way on the corner of the highway, we should look at changing it to a stop sign. It's a small change, but cars go sweeping through there without stopping at all. So, you know, we should do what we can to discourage traffic from using it. And about the only thing I can think of is a stop sign, but it's not a great solution, but it's one step, because at the moment it's a give way. And then I think the longer term solution sounds like, rather than spending millions upgrading Te Puna Station Road, is to try and get funding to fix that intersection with Te Puna Road, so that there's a proper way out for the trucks. Because Te Puna Station Road is going to be a mess. It was a mess before it closed. You've now got a situation where potentially some of the highway works, and I don't want to go too much detail because it wasn't confidential, but some of the highway works may add to the mess. And you're going to have a really fun lead up to Christmas if we do this. You know, it's going to be a complete dog's breakfast for anybody trying to come in to Tauranga from the western part of the district and beyond. So we do need to look very hard at what else we can do besides reopening the road, because I mean, yeah, that moves the problem to what else we can do to try and discourage traffic from using that route. And I know there's no great solutions, but I don't think just opening it is going to be very effective or help people from, frankly, Te Puna, Whakamarama, Aomakeroa, Karikari, Waihi Beach and beyond.
Councillor Murray Bench.
Until the new highway goes in. Mr. Chairman, I really prefer the 3 recommendations that are in our agenda. The people in the community are talking furiously now, and you're going to go out and consult them and just take longer to get the work done. And so I think I disagree with, I like the recommendation as it stands. And I thought that the 2 issues that Rodney has suggested, like the full stop at the Te Puna Station Road, State Highway 2. What was the other thing you suggested? Should be included? I'm happy to include that as well.
Well, I think those sort of things might flow on from the whole point of the consultation. We've heard that it's going to take 10 weeks physically to do it anyway. So I think we're arguing about the same thing. There's somehow Murray.
Well, I do think, sir, that it desperately needs action.
From a queue dodger point of view, I don't like it, but considering the fact that we've got a business down there that is precluded from using any other way of getting in and out of their site, we don't really have an option but to provide access along the road for them, so we do need to open it. I don't accept that we need a stop sign at the end, because when there's no traffic, you've got a lovely clear view, you can buzz around, and when there is traffic, everybody stopped anyway, so would achieve nothing. Thank you.
Right, thank you all. James, you're going to speak to it and tie it up. Before you do that, I'll just briefly break the rules by talking to my deputy chair of forum, and maybe the suggestion that Te Puna forum the Kaimai forum could be moved to Te Puna now in the upcoming one, and then we go to the hills in the subsequent meeting at the tail end of the year, and we address this very situation in a ward forum. And we can get Callum along. I'm sure he'd love to come to Te Puna Hall for an evening, and we'll have something to feed back to Margaret after that. So sorry, James, I've broken all the rules.
No, I think that's an excellent suggestion. Get it out in the community, and they can discuss it at the community forum. Also online, have your say, something like that. I think a lot of this will be education as well, to educate the wider community on how much Clark Road is suffering, the constraints around the consents, which obviously aren't known widely. So I think this is a good opportunity to do what we say. We said we're going to consult, but also use that to explain the constraints and come up with a solution which not everyone will be happy with, but it'll be probably not many other options. And so, but this, as Rodney said, this is about getting ideas as well, and other tweaks that may be able to help one way or another. So it's learn from the locals and see if there's anything we can do to improve the situation. Cheers.
Great summary, me, James. Thank you. I'll put that. All in favour of Rick, James Thwaite, Medina Thwaite. for the recommendations, 1, 2, and the new 3. And hopefully we've accommodated everyone's views that have come forward. No.
The forum debate.
No, we'll take that offline afterwards, but we're giving you an indication that's what we're going to do to. get
If you
some
can
feedback for you.
confirm that, then I would withdraw my objection.
Well, yeah, I'm nearly the boss of everything, but I'm not quite. James overrules me. So anyway, I'll put that all in favour. Those against. Thank you. I declare, oh, okay, I declare it carried. Thank you. Right, number 4 road bridge reinstatement, page 74, and this could be equally as contentious as the last road we were on. So between Te Puna Station Road and number 4 road Te Puke, we've got 2 doozies.
So, as you're aware, in January 2023, a storm event destroyed the former bridge. The central pier that was in the river was washed away, and that caused the deck to collapse and fall into the river. This is the current situation. We have a temporary Bailey Bridge in place. That was constructed 6 weeks after the initial event, so that's been in place for a few months now. So these are the 4 options that we received from our engineering consultant, WSP. They've looked at a variety of different aspects, including hydrology, road geometry, the design requirements from Waka Kotai, and consenting requirements. So they've come up with 4 options. Option 1 is to put the new bridge right beside where the Bailey Bridge is at the moment. Apologies, that plan is not quite right, because option 4 is supposed to be just to the side, just to the left of option 1. So there's a bit of an issue there when the file was saved. But option 1 is to construct a new bridge beside the existing Bailey Bridge. That would be a 30-metre span bridge with negligible longitudinal gradient, so it would have no slope on it. Option 2 would be to construct a new bridge 40 metres, approximately 40 metres east of the current location. Again, that would be a 30-metre span, but it would be quite different because it would have a 7% longitudinal gradient. Option 3 would be approximately 70 metres east of the current bridge location. That would have almost double the span, and it would have a longitudinal gradient of 15%, which is actually steeper than all of our roads, just about. Maximum gradient for our roads is 12.5%. You know, that option would have 15%. So the proposal to the committee is that we engage with the community, the local community and key stakeholders on the 4 options, but that the committee endorse option 1 as the preferable option before we go to engagement.
Councillor Wickers.
Thank you, Callum, and just really appreciate the work that your team has done to progress it to this stage, that we can see a way forward. There's a lot of detail in this report. I would like to move the recommendations 1 through 3, but with a modification to 3, and that is that the Projects and Monitoring Committee just remove the words endorse option 1 and. So basically just number 4 road residents and other key stakeholders. And then later on in the paper, there's options around what can be consulted on. I would suggest that we choose option B, which aligns with what Callum has just said.
Councillor Granger. Discussion, councillors. Speakers for this. Councillor Delly.
Yeah, I think this is the only sensible option at this stage. I think the last time we met with the number 4 road community was the opening of the Bailey Bridge, unless staff have had any further consultation. The 4 local councillors did meet with WSP and Jim Patterson in Tangata Whenua reps in a roadside meeting where we considered that had been put forward by WSP, and I, like Andy, the report is very comprehensive. I think the multi-criteria analysis is pretty good. And I think it's probably pointing to a certain solution even, and I don't think consultation on the option with the community is really going to throw up any red herrings. So I don't think there's anything to be gained by forging ahead with option one at this stage. I was going to propose a slight amendment, and I might be out of turn, but suggesting that maybe council staff and elected members seek feedback on the options. We've been present at previous consultations with residents, and I think it would be really good to inform our final decision to hear firsthand the residents' concerns at that consultation. And I don't see that it should take a huge amount of time. The disadvantage of losing time, I think, is not necessarily a valid point. I think it can be progressed quite quickly, and a decision would likely be made fairly quickly. And so I would support the recommendations put forward by Andy, but maybe seek a slight amendment if agreeable by
Grant,
councillor
can I
Wickers.
suggest that you're going to be part of it anyway, be it informally, but Councillor Scrim's going to talk, and you're going to be the ultimate decision maker anyway at the end, so you're going to be part of it. So you're not excluded from talking to that group, but I don't know if it does need amendment. We employ staff to get on and do some of these things. I realise you're raising the political nature of this, but Councillor Scrimgeour, you've got some good experience.
Oh, well, I haven't got much to add other than that I support this proposal and the amendment that Andy's brought forward. The changed recommendation that Andy's brought forward on the basis similar to the previous item we discussed in the Mayor's apprehensions about assurance given in terms of consultation. I think it would be unwise for us to have endorsed one particular option and then ask for feedback, because it looks like we've made up our minds. And so for that reason, I strongly support that. In terms of Grant's suggestion, I really, I don't personally think that that's necessary. We've already been getting plenty of feedback from some of the locals, and so they'll be happy to talk to us whether we're part of where it says council staff seek feedback or not. And as you've so clearly spelled out, staff will be required to report back to councillors for a decision, and so we'll pick up all that information then. So yeah, I'm happy to support these recommendations.
Mayor James, and then I'll see if Grant's happy with what you add to the discussion.
Yeah, I want to thank Councillor Wickers for the amendment or the resolution he's moved. I think it captures what we need to do, which is consult with community as we promised we would do. The report is pretty strongly in favour of option one, but it means we are consulting, as we said we would, with all four options. And it's also just going out with that consultation. It's also about communication and education. So it doesn't look like we've just chosen one on a whim. There's a whole series of work behind that, a lot of detail behind that, and it just gets it out in the community a little bit better about why we may go with that, whichever option. I mean, I had also thought, option 4 in theory might be a good option, but obviously you'd have to. That would absolutely require consultation with the community to see if that's something the disruption is something they're willing to put up with. So it'd be interesting to see what they say on that. I suspect I know the answer, but I'll let them express that themselves. But yeah, I think it's a good option, Andy, and happy to support it.
Councillor Daly, I'll let you speak again, then you can pursue. Yeah, but I'm just going to tidy up where we left. I did not resolve his issue that he raised, so
Okay,
do
yeah,
you wish to pursue it or not?
thank you, John. I appreciate John's faith in staff, and I agree. We should have faith in our staff, and I think generally we do. However, Andy did nod in agreement to my amendment, and I think from a staff safety point of view, for the councillors to hear firsthand the comments being made by that community and in an engagement of this nature, make sure that there's nothing lost in translation. We're all aware of communications from the community, but we do need to ensure that we hear from, you know, the majority of the community. And I think this is just a further protection for staff, for WSP, for ourselves. Well, if Andy is happy to modify his amendment slightly with the addition of and elected members, then I'm happy to.
I'll point to my learned brother Murray.
If we just remove the word staff from that recommendation, it solves the problem.
Andy, you're going to be banned from that, so see you two shouldn't be sorry, Joe. Yeah. So Grant, are you happy with that then? Does that feel that you've got the catch-all and cover-all?
Yeah, as
Just
long as
removal of that one
as long
word.
as we are invited to those consultations, then that's fine by me. Thank you.
Gary's shaking his head. Why he's decided to retire, because he's an action man. He would have just moved on to Waihi Beach and building Bally's. Yeah, he would have just done that. He would have fixed Station Road, built this bridge, and he'd be off building libraries and new drain pipes at Waihi Beach. But anyway, so mover and seconder are happy with that. Yeah, I've got Rodney to speak to. Now we've got just changed the wording of the amendment with the removal of that word from Rodney.
The only question I have, and I'm fine with the consultation, I mean, presumably there's no pressing need to launch ahead anyway, because either way, we're going to consult. But I'm just wondering whether we should take one option off the table. Callum's pointed out that option 3 would be the steepest piece of road in the district. It's also double the cost. Are we going to really consult on something that's double the cost, that creates a piece of roading that's steeper than anything else in the district? You know, I would have thought we could take that one out of the equation and go with the other 3 options as a suggestion, because
Just talked about consulting.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, but you consult with the limits. I mean, you can also offer them a motorway, but yeah, and just say, well, that's an option. But I mean, I do think.
Well, if they agree with you, they might not spend too much time on that one. Councillor Murray Bench.
I think it's more informing the local people. I remember the 3 that came in here, and I was really proud because our staff moved faster than anybody else in the country and got that Bailey Bridge up when other communities were still begging for action. So I think they'll be extremely pleased, and if the councillors can share with them what we intend to do, and if there's some great alteration, I'm sure they'll come back to us. But at the meantime, I support the recommendations that are there and say to staff, well done, let's see how fast we can complete the project.
Councillor Wick, it's up to you. Do you wish to have some final words to your
Final words, I agree.
recommendation? Oh, sorry. Oh, wait. Oh, did. I'm trying to get this thing moving so we can get home and have some dinner tonight. Andy.
Great discussion, and happy with all of that. Again, thank you to the staff for the great work that's been done here. The mayor acknowledging that, you know, we said that we're going to consult with them. No one wants this to drag out, so let's make this short and sweet and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wickers. I'll put that 1, 2 in the new 3. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Grant, you can't speak after the mover's had a second speak. You know the rules, I'm sure. He'll try anything, but not on an afternoon where I'm already 2 hours behind. Right, operational risk. Oh, that's right. Wash my mouth. Forgot number 1 road, our second most important child. third most important. Councillor Oikers, what do you know about number 1 road? 145.
So the only question I've had from community is probably hopefully relatively simple. The road is 9 metres, then it goes down to 8 metres and then out to 8.5 again. So sort of the reasoning behind the width at 8 metres for section 2.
Well, there's probably two reasons. Section 2 is where rural transitions into urban. So you wouldn't expect it to be as wide. And the second reason is with our speed management planning, we're probably going to reduce the speed limit on number 1 road. So that would be another reason for not having 9 metres wide.
Okay, should we move something here? I like to move it.
Do you want to move something, James? We just got a question while you're thinking that, and I'll come back to you, Andy. James, question.
Councillor Wickers raised the same question I had, but also on the section 4 and 5, it's proposing we actually reducing the seal width, the current seal width from 8.8 to 8.5. Is that an error, or is that
It's a pretty good cycle path.
yeah?
Sorry, where did you see that?
So in the table on page 146, section 4 and 5, the existing seal width is 8.8 and the proposed seal width is 8.5. I'm unclear as to why we'd narrow it.
That would be construction of curb and channel to accommodate the shared path.
Right, okay,
So
makes sense.
so it would reduce it, but you would have the benefit of curb and channel instead of plain swale drain.
Okay,
Sorry, I think it's also there's the bits up the top. I thought the explanation you'd given is, of course, RAM sometimes measures it differently, and we're not going to reduce it from 8.8 to 8.5. 8.5 is the design width. At the moment, the width's probably 8.8. It will stay at 8.8. We're not going to go and cut 150 mils off either side.
Councillor Daly, go in this time.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a question in terms of the recommendation 3 and the implementation of shared path be reconsidered once sections 2 and 3 of the rehabilitation widening have been completed. I understand that during the first 2 projects, there is the option to make certain provisions for a future pathway beside the road, whether it's pedestrian or cycle. And I'm just wondering if that is included in these projects, or is it have to go back and revisit it once the initial projects have been done?
Sorry, what was the question?
So the question is, when you do these projects at the end of this year and the following year, will you still be making certain provisions that are within the scope of that contract to facilitate a future cycleway walkway?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So the works proposed under sections 2 and 3 don't include a shared path, but they include earthworks to facilitate the construction of a shared path at a later date.
So just to confirm, that is something that's quite achievable. It's not going to delay the project, and it's perfectly within scope. And there is a possibility of future Waka Kotahi funding down the track.
I've got a question first. This is probably just for other councillors, the answer for this, just for an awareness point of view. The total project there has got that figure of 9.3 mil. Of that 9.3 mil, what is the implication of putting that shared pathway in? If that wasn't in the scope, how much would that remove from the project?
So it's 150,000 plus 2.65 million plus 1.95 million plus 1.65 million. Sorry, I don't have a calculator, but
So from memory, Callum, it was a couple of $1 million for the cycleway shared path. For those couple of sections, it's expensive. And in terms of when we've looked at it, it's going, what's the key issues at the moment? The key issues is the road pavement and the road width. And so while it's desirable to have the path, we actually don't have the budget for the path at the moment, and we don't have the external to proceed with the rehab and the widening, and then come back to the path in the future.
Councillor Joyce.
All right, so as per table 2, is it the shared path? 3.6 million of the 9.4 million is the shared path. That's the case, right? To answer the question. So yeah, take 3.6 off 9.4, yes. So. Now, what I'm looking at, if you look at the shared path, it's got new shared path 1.95, new shared path 1.65. That adds up to 3.6 million.
And 2 plus 2.6.
Well, that's missing from this table 2. Yeah, it's different to this thing. Yeah, it's different to what's in the agenda.
2.6.
5.35.
I don't know. Anyway, it's different. It's different to what's saying says here. My question was, funding is all in place for this anyway, right? So it's not, there's no funding question. It's already in the long-term plan. In fact, we'll actually be spending less for a little bit while we get everything together by the looks of it.
Yeah, so the funding's there. So you, the council approves what we'd call a bulk funding line for rehab, and then we adjust it to we adjust the work program to match the budget and the demand.
We're talking about option 3 up here.
If you look in the recommendation, so the recommendation in terms of 3 is proceeding with those 2 sections, sections 2 and section 3 of number 1 road for widening and rehabilitation. And that includes lowering section 2 for the future Canal Farms Drive connection. So that's what the recommendation is. And then you're noting that you'll consider the shared path in the future, but the important thing from the community feedback and from the road condition is to do those 2 sections now.
James.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, on the schedule there, it's do half of it this year and half of it next year. Is that just capacity or just disruption issues, or what's the why can't we do it all this year, for instance?
Yeah, it's basically fits with our design and construction capacity within Westlink and with the other program. And Callum.
there's a limit to what you can do in number 1 road because you start interfering with the kiwi fruit traffic. So you need to break it down into smaller sections so that you can do it in the time available to us before kiwi fruit trucks start moving up and down the road.
Great, thank you.
Good work. Right, Councillor Mo Bench, you're going to move it for us.
It's so overdue. I'm more than happy to move the recommendations 1, 2 and 3.
Right.
And
No, too slow. They were all didn't want to do it because they didn't have their path on it, so they were all balking. So, Grant, I'm sure Councillor Mo Bench would concede if you really want to move it.
Well,
You should be happy to second your
I'll do
motion.
either.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll move it unless Andy had a amendment. I'm happy to move.
Councillor
1, 2,
Murray
3.
Bench would be happily to second it for you, Grant. How's that? Recommendations 1, 2, 3, and get on and build that.
Thank you.
First 2 kilometres of road and 2 bikes, not to disrupt the kiwi fruit season. Okay, is there any further discussion required on recommendations 1, 2, and 3? Well, you moved it. We assume you, yeah, write a reply. We assume you support it.
I just thought you were going to put it before I had a chance to comment. Okay. Unless someone else wants to make a statement as well before.
Okay, better go first and then Grant can tidy it up.
Once again, This has been drawn out, but the council staff have really stepped up, and the contractors, the pitchforks were put away, and there's a good feeling on the road. So this is just the next step in moving it. So I fully support it.
It's up to you.
Yeah, thank you all for supporting this. I trust you'll all support these recommendations. I've lived up above the connection of number 1 road to number 2 road for 20 years. This road, the road above this remediated section was built, upgraded, widened before I moved here, and also number 2 road. They're essentially super highways. They're some of the best roads in the district above this point. And ever since I lived up here, the bottom part of number 1 road has been falling a bit, deteriorating. The cyclone and the extreme rainfall we had over the last 6 to 12 months has really forced this home to roost as a road that ended its serviceable life. And in some ways it's a blessing, because ever since I've been on council, one of the first meetings we had, the government from number 1 road came in with Ranger Road from Trevelyan's and another representative. Gave us a dossier of about inch thick about this road and the safety issues, because the narrowness at the bottom and the uneven surface and ongoing maintenance issues. So to finally get this over the line after several suggestions that it's going to happen in the next season for various reasons, and I do acknowledge that the cycleway and shed pathway has been a bit of a red herring, and I certainly hope that is not the reason for the delay to this point, but I can see that it may well be staying there. But I do think, the residents.
Thank you. Councillor Daly, no, I'm afraid he got the moving rights and we got you to second it.
Into the motion after he moved it. So
No, that was his closing address. Sorry, we let Andy in. So we're all for it. Look, I'm going to put it, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Well done, Grant. Get on and build it. Right, operational risk and scorecard reports largely in your packet 153. Take any exceptions and Kerry can come up and answer your queries. Oh, she got her presentation after
Yeah,
that.
So Mr. Chair, so this is the scorecard report. So I'll just take any questions on that. And Kerry's just got, in terms of the written, we just highlighted a couple of things, and I just thought Kerry could show you two or three pictures of what's happening at the moment. Yeah, just click through it's on that presentation. Yeah.
He's catching up to Amakara fast and consents. Hey, Grant.
Sorry. So Nigel's been out to Heron Crescent again yesterday. So there's just about to start putting the fence up between the building site, or put the fence back, and 19 Heron Crescent to reinstate that neighbour's fence. And this pathway down towards Dingleman Park is about a week or so away from opening up, I understand. And that will reinstate that neighbours fencing as well. So that will be here on Crescent. There will be that site ready, sitting and waiting for the new units to be built on once we get funding approved. Next, Middlebrook Drive. So this is the shared service facility that's just about to start being built at Middlebrook Drive. They've broken ground there and came up with a whole lot of problems of buried debris and all sorts of stuff buried in that site. So they had to dig a whole lot deeper than what they anticipated. But it's boxed up, ready for inspection, and then a site pour also starting next week, weather permitting, as long as the weather stays as it is now. There'll be some small site changes to accommodate the turnaround area for the Red Cross, but we've been meeting with them just to make sure that everybody fits on there nicely and can get their vehicles in and out. So after all these years, we're finally going to have the Katikati Men's Shed, Katikati Patrol and Katikati Community Van housed on that site. I think that's those pictures.
So there was just a couple of heads up. Probably if there's any questions, Gracie, see if there's any questions in terms of the scorecard. And you've also got in there the update on the storm damage and progress. So we said we'll provide that at each meeting to show you where we're up to with the reinstatements. So probably any questions?
Rodney. Councillor Joyce.
The Heron Crescent, you've got the work underway. Any idea when the first 4 units will be available to occupy?
Heron Crescent, or are you talking
Sorry,
about Beach Road?
Crescent, Waihi Beach on Beach Road. Sorry, brain fart.
First week in October.
Okay, they'll be happy. And just a question on insurance. I mean, obviously we're insured to the hilt. Bearing in mind these units are for people that haven't got a lot of money. What's the situation with them with their possessions and things? Are we helping with that, or is there somebody helping with that if necessary?
So any possessions that they had that they didn't take to their temporary accommodation with them have been stored in a storage unit at the Beach Road contractor's site, and we are currently paying for that through our insurance. When it comes time for them to move back into some accommodation, the people that didn't have insurance will support them through agencies that Joe has through emergency management, even though technically it's not still emergency management. So we will still support them.
We lost a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and there's also community groups standing at the ready wanting to help support them as well.
Yeah. Right, I've got Tracy, then James.
Kerry, just on the elder housing or whoever, it says 4 units were demolished and 7 have been removed and have been on-sold. Who have they been sold to?
So now they've done the turnaround and they've gone to the Britain's Demolition Company who took them off site in the first place. So they've taken away 2 of those, I believe, and then the others are waiting for them to make the trip up to come back and get them. So they're currently stored on the Prospect Drive site in Katikati.
So the local iwi didn't want them, or?
Thanks. Right, Deputy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can respond to that. So it certainly wasn't a case that Ngaitama Whareua didn't want the units. They could not fund the cost associated with consenting, remediating land and remediating the units to have them in a habitable state on site. So it became all too costly and all too hard.
Mayor James. Oh, did you have another question? Sorry, Tracy, you happy with that? You done? Yep.
It's just in response to Rodney's comment. We actually received a small amount of money from the government as a mayoral relief fund for the Waihi Beach flood, and that's gone to the elder housing people there to replace uninsured goods and help them generally.
Are the people living in these, who were living here, are they happy with the way the work is going to improve the stormwater damage so they can move back in? How confident are they?
I think it's fair to say they're nervous. And because we can't give any guarantees around the 7 units that we haven't started to repair, we can't give them any certainty around that. So at this stage, I think the 5 people that will move into the 4 units that we're refurbing, they're comfortable because those units haven't flooded in the past. But the other people are living a little bit in limbo. We've got some units available in Te Puke that we're trying to encourage some people to go to, just to give them some surety. And then, you know, if your units become available back at Waihi Beach, then they can come back there.
The RSA were going to do something. There was someone from the RSA who thought there was an alternative. Has that fizzled out?
So I spoke to Stuart, maybe Stuart Brown, I know his first name's Stuart, about that land. So he owns some land at the end of Browns Drive that he was interested in making turning into RSA flats, building some RSA flats. So all I could do when I spoke to him was to give him advice to contact our planning team to find out the viability of building units there. Bearing in mind, when I looked at that land, it's also in a floodable zone, and there's not much viable land within that block that he was talking about.
Yeah.
On the 7 that have been sold, there were some rather fanciful figures being thrown around by 1 or 2 groups about what those things were worth.
Are you talking here in Crescent?
Here in
now?
Crescent, yeah, the ones we sold, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting confused as well. The 7 that we sold, can we know how much they sold for? Because I'm guessing it probably wasn't much.
It wasn't much at all.
Can we get a number? Just to show what, I mean, that's the true value, right? The market value, because we've sold them to an outfit that specializes in this. And yeah, we had people going around saying they're worth 200,000 each, which is obviously bollocks.
No, not at all. There was no way they were worth 40,000 each. 200,000. We sold the 7 units for $40,000 because he had to come back up from the Hawke's Bay and pick them up again.
So, right, so that concludes any questions on that report? Appears to. I have moved in a second to receive that report, please. Councillor Cox, Councillor Granger, I'll put that all in favour. Those against it, declare it carried. Right, we're ready to go to confidential, Carol? Oh, we have 2. We've got some more too. Oh, yeah, I thought we'd just about dealt with that. Yeah, largely, but anyway, we have a report there.
Probably any questions on that one?
Yeah, the information from the
Yeah.
Info.
What pages are those?
Page 180.
Oh, yeah.
Just one thing, if I may, that I can add on that Waihi Beach reports, sort of following on from your question, Margaret, is that the team from the property team, or the tenancy managers, if you like, are in contact with the tenants every week. Sometimes they go and see them twice a week just to make sure that they're feeling okay and can answer as many questions as they can for them. So they're being looked after by the staff.
Right, the report's on page 180. I need a mover and a second to receive them. Councillor Granger, Councillor Scrimmager, all those in favour? All those against that, declare it carried. Thank you. And one final report on page 182,
Yeah.
all committee process.
Yeah, this is in response. Councillor Joyce, you asked a question about this. So maybe we just take this as read and any questions?
Mayor James.
There's just a quick clarification, if I may. In the table, there's 2 groups of halls. One says the halls that council administer are located as follows, and other ones halls that council administer are located as follows. I assume there's one is perhaps no longer or So there's some difference there.
So,
So that's on page 183.
I think the top ones are all administered by the hall committees.
Yeah.
And those bottom two are actually administered by council staff.
So the top one should say halls rather than council, the whole committee.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gotcha, thanks.
Gary, do you just get some clarification from Gary? Nah,
Sorry.
we're basically,
Owned by the residents. I don't think there's any input at all from council, and they simply, because it's quite an old hall, they simply insure it for sufficient that if it was ever damaged or something, they could, they'd have funds to pull it down, dispose of it.
and the Abbott Hall's largely transferred to the education, department, the school, the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
As far as I know. So maybe,
We'll just check that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The Odamorakau Hall and the Apata Hall aren't administered by council. Sorry, I can't get the report.
Yeah,
up.
that's correct.
so the 16 are listed there. Is everyone happy with that? Councillor Murray Bench? Thank you. Second by Councillor Joyce. I'll put that all in
I'm
favour.
sorry, I did have
Oh,
a question. No,
you have a
actually,
question?
the
Do you want to
question,
second that?
there's a right, I can have a second, but the question arose because what is council's liability if a hall committee acts in a negligent fashion? And that hasn't really been answered by the report. Yeah, do we have any liability? I mean, most of them, we don't own the buildings, but we own the land. So where does our liability finish if they do something negligent? Hard question,
So,
sorry.
I would go there and incorporate a society so they'd be responsible themselves. And they can't, for example, they couldn't sell a building because it has to transfer back to council.
Yeah, but if they did something in a hall that was not safe, for example, and someone got hurt,
So the hall committee, because they're the building owners and that terminology.
Okay.
Yeah.
just after White Island, I mean, anybody was found liable, or was in the process of potentially being found liable.
Depends. I mean, if they were employing people, then they'd be a PCBU and be responsible under health and safety. So they each would have their own individual circumstances.
I wonder if it's one worth asking our insurers just in case.
Yep, Grant. Yeah, Councillor Dilly.
Just a further question, Kerry. I understand the agreements with council have been been in the process of being renewed just recently. Was there any significant changes in that process, or is it just reconfirming what was already in place?
I'm not aware of any significant changes to them. No. Do you mean with the hall committees?
Yeah, we had a CERT meeting in Te Puke and it was mentioned that that new documentation was being provided, being sought and updated.
I'm not aware of that. Sorry, every year they meet with the hall committee and they go through their maintenance plan and they'll get any of the building warrant of fitness information and things like that from them. But I'm not aware of any changes in the requirements.
So they're all basically operating on the same incorporated society document that was established in 2001?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay.
I should have read it thoroughly, Kerry. Just regarding insurance, who basically at the end of the day ensures that they are insured, or do we do that as a backstop?
They pay the insurance,
Yeah,
but we
they-
make sure they are insured.
Yeah, we
yes.
do the
Yes.
checks made on behalf
Yes,
of all the ratepayers who pay their fee towards the hall, and yeah. So we
Yes.
do check that that's all paid, done.
yes.
Okay. Now I had a mover and a seconder, and Councillor Murray Bench, Councillor Joyce. All questions been answered. I'll put that all in favour. Those against it, declare it carried. Right, now I'll move to confidential. Look to my left-hand side. Councillor Daly, Councillor Granger. Put that all in favour. Those against, declare it carried. Thank you.